Hey friends, welcome back to the email trail. We are going on this journey learning about leadership landscapes and how we're going to be prepared personally to thrive in each of these leadership contexts, but also we're thinking strategically about how we can begin to lead our teams and lead our organizations into a healthy version of these leadership landscapes as well. So we're going to dive in with the second checkpoint, which is all about skill building. You will not survive if you don't have the right skills for your environment. And so what we're going to do is identify skills that work no matter where you are, and then we're going to get specific with skills that you need in each landscape. So above all, no matter where you go as a leader, you will always need the following: self-leadership, servant leadership, and then if you make it, generational leadership as well. I talk a lot about those three things. And so just go to Prepare to Go there, my leadership preparedness podcast, and you'll find many conversations that take you in that direction. But if you're committed to grow yourself, if you're willing to work with other people in win-win scenarios, and if you're going to invest your best into the future of your team, not just the current version of your team, then you will make things better. You will be a leader that people are thankful for. And so keep it up. Having said that, there are some specific skills that you can map out to help you thrive in each of these leadership landscapes. There might be some overlap. I'll be honest, this was really tough for me to really put it out there like this, but at least it is a starting point plan. Okay, so I just want to get your gears going. I want to get you thinking about it. And the way I wanted to talk about this is, what skills do you need if your leadership landscape is healthy? And then what do you need if your leadership landscape is unhealthy? Okay, so maybe you're leading in a institutional context, either literally or that's just kind of the way your organizational culture rolls right now. If so, like if it's healthy, awesome. That's great. You've actually weathered the storms. You've built some infrastructure and you've got like a really long-term, direction that you're running with. That's great. That's awesome. So there's really no shame in saying I lead in an institutional culture. That's great. There's actually some teams, and they've been running and gunning in movement style for a while, and they would actually like that pace. They would love to have benefits. They would love to, have a lot of teams and resources to work with. I mean, that's kind of what they're reaching for in some ways. And so it's not about, which areas are good and which are bad. It's about knowing what's needed for the season that you're leading in and for the community and the context that you're working with. So let's look at institutions first. What skills do you need to thrive in this leadership landscape? Well, when an institution is healthy, I would say visionary communication. Visionary communication is so important. Obviously, it's important on all levels, but really for institutional models, visionary communication is what's going to touch the heart and stir it to fire again, to really refire an institutional context, to dream again, to launch out, to get out of any rigid optimism, that they've already made it or they've already arrived, and to really be flexible so that way they could leverage all of the benefits and the accomplishments that's already happened in that organization's history, and to actually go again and give more. And so again, visionary leadership, man, if that's your context, that's your culture right now, I would say really double down on visionary communication. And the other thing is leadership development. Because I'm pretty sure if you're in that context, you already have people that are working and leading at some level, but it doesn't mean that they're actually up to speed with the real challenges and the real dynamics that are going on. Sometimes we can just kind of get self-absorbed inside the walls of our own, space. And we've got to be willing to kind of venture outside of the monastery every once in a while, so that way we can come back in with renewed vision and compassion. And so leadership development is really important, that you refuel and you retool the leaders on that team. Now, if you're in an institutional context and the organizational culture is unhealthy, then I would say you really need to learn a lot about organizational change management. You got to know what change management, what it is, and how to do it, and how to be okay with it. There's going to be conflict resolution and confrontation, and I mean, you really got to get armed for that. The other thing I would say is crisis leadership, because if you're in an institutional context that has a really long history, and they've been doing things the same way for a long time, they may not realize that they're in a crisis, and they may be pretending that it's okay until it's too late, and then it really is a crisis. And so if you're not getting the message across, with visionary communication, leadership development, and then change management, then you just need to brace yourself, because crisis leadership is coming. All right, let's go on to enterprises. Skills that we need to thrive in the enterprise landscape. Both if you're actually working in the marketplace, you're in a business or a startup, or you're an entrepreneur or business owner. That's amazing. You guys are my heroes. You're awesome. Entrepreneurs are going to change the game. They're going to help so much. But also, if you are in just an organizational culture and you operate more like, you kind of have more of that startup culture, then let's be thinking about these things. What skills do you need? If you're in a healthy culture, you need to be revisiting what it looks like to have a holistic work-life integration. Work-life integration. That is a skill. It's tough. It doesn't make sense to a lot of pioneering leaders in this world, because man, they're building, they're the architects, they're the engineers of a organization, and so they're all in, and they know that they only have a limited window of opportunity. And so I really want to encourage you, for the sake of success and sustainability in your leadership landscape, you got to go back and reimagine how you're going to succeed with work-life integration there. The other thing I think is really valuable is to have a really hearty conversation about leadership culture. And I know that it's kind of vogue and people like to talk about leadership culture, but really, how do you begin to shape or sharpen the culture of the leaders? And what does that look like? Because in many organizations, specifically in the business world, it's hierarchical. It's a dog eat dog. It can be competitive, like I mentioned. It can even get combative. And so to really have a healthy relational approach to the way you lead and do teams and get results is actually going to be a breath of fresh air. It's very refreshing. It's actually a unicorn in this space. And I think that's one of the ways pioneer leaders can shine. You can really stand out in a positive way if you take that on. Now, if the enterprise model or context you're in is unhealthy, here are 2 skills that I would encourage you to go for. Number 1, just obviously you need to get some financial literacy. Like, you need to learn what is financial literacy, how do you develop it, go find other people, surround yourself with people smarter than you. Like, you should already be doing that. But if you're in that leadership landscape and it's not healthy, it's bleeding, that's where you got to go first. Financial literacy. I know that's kind of the talk everywhere that everyone's having. So it's probably not a bad idea for all of us. But specifically, if you are anywhere near the cockpit of an organizational culture, you got to get on the financial literacy train. Also, I would say organizational resiliency. Organizational resiliency. What does that mean? It means that, things are moving fast, things are changing, and like I said, they could be susceptible in this climate. If you're working in this kind of style, that they're very prone to co-ops, takeovers at the leadership level, at the the strategic level. So be mindful of that, and be thinking about resiliency, not just for the sake of your bottom line, but for the sake of your team, your people. Let's move on to movements. When movements are healthy, man, this is a real gift. If you're a part of a healthy movement, you have one of the rare gifts this side of heaven. For real, a healthy movement. Just the thought of that makes me smile. Because, wow, don't we all want to be a part of a healthy movement at some level? But anyways, skill building. You got to really understand what decentralized leadership looks like. Decentralized leadership is really the lifeblood of a healthy movement, and doing it in a healthy way. It is decentralized, but that doesn't mean that it's isolating. It's empowering. It's relational. It's still connected with shared values and, at the heart level. But decentralized leadership is important, that you really wrap your head around that, and you lead with a clear grasp of what that means. The other thing I would say, this is kind of a phrase I made up, so it might already be out there, but this is just the best way I could describe it, is collaborative infrastructure. Collaborative infrastructure. When you're doing a decentralized thing like movement, it can be very tempting to kind of revert back to more, command central models. And there are, times and uses for that kind of model. But if you're going for movement, like real movement, pure, strong, life-giving movement, you got to protect it, and you're protecting it from that impulse, to rein it in, to pull it back, to monitor and measure and manage it back into something that it wasn't meant to be. And so collaborative infrastructure is basically, how are you going to function at the movement level without suffocating and smothering the very fire, that makes it awesome to be a part of. Now, it is true, movements can be unhealthy, and man, that is a runaway train. So here are two skills that I would say, I'm not saying this to be cheeky at all, but the first skill you need is history. You just need to know some history. You got to go back and get some history lessons, because there have been so many movements that got derailed at some level. So you need to understand what happened to them. You need to learn from their mistakes. You need to try your best to not be critical, but you need to get some constructive feedback, so that way you can inform and influence what's going on in the moment. And then the other thing I would say is leadership revitalization. Leadership revitalization. Another thing would just be restoration. Because if you're in a really messy movement, I can tell you there are going to be leaders that are getting stuck in some very dirty situations. And we've got to learn, how do you hold the line? How do you hold leaders accountable? And how do you, uphold standards of integrity and truth without throwing leaders under the runaway train and just making them collateral damage in the name of some greater good. And so leadership revitalization, which means if there is some sort of fallout, how are you going to revitalize the necessary leadership engine, if I could call it that, without misstepping? And then equally for those that are going through the mud, so to speak, how are you going to bring, or at least believe for, restoration? Restoration is going to be important at that level. Okay, so just to kind of summarize these skill sets, number one, institutions, the skills that you want to have that are really going to make you shine, really going to make a difference, be a real strength to that organizational culture, is the ability to innovate and reform. Innovate and reform. If you're in the enterprises, the marketplace, in a business, or in some sort of fast-paced culture there, it's the ability to create and scale. Create and scale. And then if you're in a movement, the skills that are going to make you thrive are the ability to launch and release. The ability to launch and release. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this extended journey. Just talking about leadership landscapes. Kind of fun. I really appreciate you doing this in the email trail. There's going to be a call to action below. I didn't mention that in the last one, but there's a call to action below. Take it seriously, because this is an opportunity that other people don't get. You're here in the email trail, so let's keep this coaching journey going. Okay? I appreciate you. I'm cheering you on, and I will see you in the next checkpoint of this email trail.